And so what I want to share with you this evening are just some very quick trends that I see happening in our society as it relates to aging and older adults. The first trend is that there are more seniors coming down the road. In 1900, 1 out of every 25 persons in our society, 65 years of age and over. By 2000, that increased 1 out of every 8 persons in our society is 65 and over. By 2020, it will be 1 out of 6, and by 2030, 1 out of every 5 persons will be 65 and over. Look around. You'll be looking at a 65-year-old. The population has grown from 3 million in 1900, 3 million people, 65 and over, to 35 million in 2000, to nearly 72 million, actually about 71.5 million in the next 19 years. Look at that figure. In 1935, Congress passed the Social Security Act that we're hearing a lot about in these recent years, and they set the age, following Bismarck's example over in Germany, at 65. The life expectancy in the United States at that time was 61. Congress, in its infinite wisdom, did not figure very many people would ever collect Social Security, and that's why they set it at 65. Why are we having this trend in our society? 2 primary reasons. 1, lower birth rates. We experience that pretty heavily in our mainline denominations. The other major reason why we have this growing population of older persons is because of longer lifespans. More people are living longer today than ever before. And what's helping to drive that? As Craig said earlier, that boomer generation. Approximately 78 million babies were born between 1946 and 1964. At a rate of 10,000 a day. Boomers are turning 65, a rate of 10,000. That's roughly around 1 every 8 seconds. Somebody just turned 65. What's another trend? Well, the marks of old age is changing. Really. The age 65 that we used to say that was old age is no longer really old age. People who are 65 are more active, healthier, wealthier than previous generations of older adults. Another trend that we're seeing as a result of so many older persons in our society, and it's coming, is the reality of a pandemic of chronic conditions. Oftentimes, it would be a situation of, we used to think at 75, multiple chronic conditions. If we have more people living longer, we're having a society where people are being sustained by technology, medications, all sorts of things that are keeping us living longer. Another trend that we're seeing related to aging is family caregiving concerns. Approximately 6 million people aged 65 years of age and over need some form of long-term care. Now, it could be in their home, it could be in a nursing home, it could be in assisted living, but they need some help. It may be with bathing, dressing, cooking, feeding. It's happening more and more, and by 2040, it's expected to be 21 million people who are 65 years of age and over who need caregiving assistance. Now, that would be great if we had a lot of younger people coming along. One of the issues that I faced about a year ago when I was in Indianapolis. I was on the stage giving a presentation, and there was a geriatrician who was there who was also on the stage, and these were his words out of his mouth. The very first thing he said, if any, and there was about 400 people out there, social workers, clergy, parish nurses, and he said, if anyone in this room plans to live to be an older adult, make sure you have a daughter. And the whole group went into a laughter. Not meaning that men don't take care of parents, but the reality is women do. Increasingly costly health care, trend number 5. A growing problem within our society. Abby said how difficult it is for her age. It is extremely difficult also as we grow older, in part because of technology. People say, oh, we don't ration health care yet. Yes, we do. Insurance companies have been rationing health care for some time. And the growing technology means who will determine who has this? Who will make the decision who gets this needed care? These are going to be questions that we're going to be facing out of our religious context, out of a faith, out of our faith context is what we're going to have to wrestle with in terms of how do we make this decision with the cost of health care. Trend 6, coming down the pike, mass dementia. Today, roughly 5 million people who are 65 years of age and over have Alzheimer's disease. Wow. By 2050, the Alzheimer's Association projects it will be 16 million. Look around. You will see someone you know who has Alzheimer's disease. That's the reality, unless something is done. Less funding goes into this care than breast cancer, prostate cancer, and all the other researches related to cancer combined goes into this kind of research dealing with dementia. And this is going to become a growing problem in our society. Trend 7, financial insecurity. You know, the gift of long life is a wonderful blessing. It is a gift from God. But do we have the financial resources to be able to live into our 80s and our 90s? And that's the question we hear so often from older persons in our congregations or within our own family. If I had known I was going to live this long, I would have saved more, worked longer, done something. And that fear coming into play. Do I have enough money to be able... I had no idea I was going to live this long. I never imagined I'd be in my 80s or my 90s. And do I have enough money to be able to survive and to sustain myself? Most seniors are not wealthy, contrary to popular opinion. There are older adults who will live rather well. But there are also older adults who will not, who will barely be able to live day to day, let alone month to month. A growing trend between what I describe as the welderly, those who have money able to afford health care, and the elderly, those who are older who do not have the financial resources who will need care. Trend 8, will we still have retirement? You know, we think back, for many of us, we think back perhaps to our parents or to our grandparents who worked at a plant, worked in a mine, worked wherever, and discovered that, wow, they could retire with a nice nest egg at 55 years of age, 58, 60, 62. And the company, if they worked for Caterpillar, Chalmers, Prudential, they would have that kind of benefit and health care that they could live to a ripe old age. My father-in-law is in his mid-90s. He worked for Bethlehem Steel outside of Philadelphia until he retired at 65. These past 30 years, he has not had to worry financially about his pension or his health care. He is taken care of very well. How many of us can say that about ourselves and the people we know? No more retirement. Maybe people will want to continue. Boomers keep saying, I want to continue to work. I have continuing career interests. I worry about dwindling Social Security, unstable Social Security, dwindling pensions, all of these things. The reality is, will boomers be able to continue to work? Will places want them to work? Will employers want them to work? Will they have the health that enables them to continue to work? Trend 9, elder abuse. With the numbers of older persons, it is a fact that we're going to experience larger numbers, greater numbers of people who are going to experience the neglect, psychological abuse, physical, sexual abuse, financial abuse, and spiritual abuse. Spiritual abuse. What do I mean by that? Congregations that have no kind of elder care ministry, that are not engaged in reaching out to older persons who are making life transitions and helping them continue to grow spiritually. But because they're no longer in the church, because they're no longer seen, disengage from helping them to continue to grow in faith. The victims of elder abuse, generally a woman between the ages of 70 and 89, who is frail, perhaps has some form of cognitive impairment, maybe isolated, perhaps living alone, becomes the greatest source for that whole sense of victim of elder abuse. That's the woman. The greatest degree of suicide by anyone, young, old alike. Greatest number of suicide, white males, 75 years of age and over. Think about your congregations. Think about the men. Where are the men in your congregations? Trend 10, declining church participation. It was so nice for the GI generation, who are now dwindling, as Craig said, they're 85 and above. The GI generation came to church out of obligation. They came to church because it was the thing to do. It was good to be seen in that United Methodist church, that Presbyterian church. It was just good to be there. And so the GI generation came to church out of obligation. Boomers don't do that. It isn't out of obligation that they're going to church. So we hear what Abby had to say in terms of young people who are moving away from the church. We're thinking, oh, these older people will be there. They're going to help support our church financially. They're struggling financially. They're also going out the back door or feeling in many ways they're being ignored by the church. And therefore, they're not as much a part. And we're seeing more and more older persons no longer participating in the life of their congregation. In some churches, it's sad to say, this is the reality of some older persons. We go into a contemporary worship service and they feel disenfranchised from the church. They say, we no longer sing songs like Blessed Assurance that I came to Jesus with. And we don't sing those songs anymore, and so I no longer feel like the church is meeting my needs. That's another reason why we see this happening. So there's a growing trend, even among older persons, who we used to think not only did they come out of obligation, but they came because they wanted to be buried by the church. And more people are saying, that don't matter to me.